and that at all times their personal privacy will be respected.
I call the honourable member Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd like to take a call in the committee stages of this bill and reinforce some of the comments which have been made by previous speakers on this side of the House around the fact that this bill is being produced in a context of the most extraordinary privacy breaches that this country has seen, perhaps ever. And the way that this legislation is proposing to address issues of privacy and information sharing can only very kindly be described as piecemeal. Piecemeal. In fact, to be honest, this bill is actually a pathetic and very shallow piece of legislation when considered in the context of those dreadful privacy breaches, which no doubt will continue to be listed one by members on this side of the House, because the fact is that this government is not doing anything to address these issues. Mr Chair, if you're going to make information sharing more possible, which is what this bill purports to do, then you have to ensure that there are protections, commensurate protections for people's privacy, that they're put in place alongside that. And unfortunately, this bill doesn't go anywhere near doing that. And when you look at what the Law Commission said when it released its report on that 4-year review of privacy, it had over 100 recommendations for change. There were 100 of those recommendations, and when you look at actually what's been incorporated in this piece of legislation, it is pathetic. It's tiny, and it doesn't go anywhere near doing what the intent was of the Privacy Commissioner, and after a very long and extensive piece of work. And I think it's actually embarrassing for this House to be considering this bill in the light of that. And I just want to mention what some of them are, because it goes to very much to the purpose of this Act, but unfortunately the purpose of, and what the stated purpose of this Act isn't really borne out by the reality of what's in it. The privacy complaints process would have been streamlined if this government had taken account of some of those recommendations. And essentially it would have given the Privacy Commissioner more powers to ensure that there were binding decisions on complaints when a person had asked for information about him or herself and had been refused, that groups of people would be able to bring representative complaints, which are similar to class actions. Now, even being given the opportunity to discuss that at a select committee would have been a really useful thing to do, especially in the light of some of these privacy breaches that have occurred in recent times. Take, for example, the 7,000 people whose through the kiosks documents from MSD networks through the work and income self-service kiosks. They were just a fraction of those that were available, but the blogger Keith Ning was able to download those 7,000 documents to make the point that it was possible to do that. Now, those people need to be able to bring some sort of complaint around that. Now, are they able to under this proposed legislation? Bringing a privacy case to the Human Rights Review Tribunal, which would have been simpler, a more direct route. That was another recommendation of the Privacy Commissioner. 2 new powers were being proposed, which were the ability to issue a compliance notice where a government agency or business was acting in breach of the Privacy Act, and also the ability to require an audit of a government agency or business where there was a good reason. And I'll tell you what, Mr Chair, there have been some very good reasons for an audit of government agencies or business, particularly when you look at all of those privacy breaches. And there is a private member's bill in my name which will be brought to this House in coming weeks around setting up a special commission of inquiry into all of those privacy breaches, because we should not be dealing with this issue on a piecemeal basis, on an agency basis specific. We should be looking at what are the underlying reasons behind these privacy breaches. What is it that is drawing us, Mr. Chair?
I call the honourable member Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. New Zealand First supports the